Hello everyone. So today's video we're going to be doing a pretty simple pendant project. We're going to use the 3 shaper tools that are now included in V9. It's just a basic handful of tools. It's a nice introduction to 3 shaper. So this video is that as well. It's more of a simple project to get you used to the basic tools. Of course, with the Pro Tools you can do a whole lot more with it, a lot more detailed, more sculpted shapes, and anything you want really. Sky's the limit when it comes to mesh modeling. Let's jump into it. I have created a template for you. You can download that from the Training Lounge. Gives us a guide to follow. And we're going to select the OXY and we're going to load that with image and plane from the support section. And we double click here to navigate to the image. I have it on the desktop here. And we'll go ahead and just get it in there. Now you've noticed I included the size of the original pendant. It's about 24.66 millimeters, just to give me a rough size that I want to keep this in. So I need to scale this to that size, and that's hard to do with the image, so I'm going to go ahead and just create in a sketch in the same plane a simple box from center, and we will set that box at that 24.6 millimeters, and we can do 25 is fine too. Like I said, that's just kind of a general size of the original pendant that I'm copying. You on your own projects might be working from a sketch or other photos and things like that. So, and that's it, just a simple box at the size we need, and then we'll exit the sketch and double click back in that image. Now we can scale and align this to our guideline we just drew. So lots more scale. And then of course we also want to center it as much as possible and validate that. Now we can get rid of that sketch just by deleting it from the tree, and we're ready to start shaping our object. So for that we're going to jump right into 3 shaper, access the modeling module here on the in your modules. Okay, so you see we just have a handful of tools, but for this project that's all we need. And we're going to create the first shape, and again, limited options here, but the one we will use is a box, a very simple tool or simple object, and the most appropriate one for what we have. So we click on box, and the first step when you're creating a solid in shaper is to go ahead and set your center point, your length, width, and height, which I use starting with 25 millimeters. Oops, sorry, that's the there we go. Something like that for now. We're going to shape it to the size of the pendant, so really the main one I'm concerned about is the height of it, because that's going to give me my general thickness of my pendant. And then we have to choose the number of subdivisions. Right now when we build it that way, we get this flat little disc and not a box at all. So if we subdivide that, I'm going to do 4 and 3. So 4 across the top in both directions and 3 across the sides. Now we see we got more of this flattened out box. So that's all set up. We'll go ahead and jump to our editing tool, and we're going to switch to the vertex mode or the point mode so we can select the points and start shaping them. And I see here it's a little hard to see my image, so for now I'm going to exit out of shaper, and remember it's 2 exit buttons to get out of shaper. The sub menu here, very limited in the basic tools. You have import and add a new surface edit. That's about it. I'm going to go back into my image and plane, turn to the side here, and just drag it up in front of my model a bit. Kind of adjust the transparency so I can see through it. And we'll validate that and then freeze it so that it's not in the way when I'm working through it. So to get back into the model, always go back to edit the model by going into the model and double clicking the uppermost edit surface that you have. So I'll take us right back in. So now I can see my shape a little clearer. Okay, so the key here when moving and editing your points is to always marquee select so that we're moving the entire set of points for each set that we're moving. And we're going to use a combination of move and resize. What resize is going to allow us to do is to select the whole row of points, go to resize, and using the scale along the X in this case, we can start pushing these in towards the center. Okay, and I'm going to just show you a lot of this. I won't have to explain it because it's just going to be a lot of these two tools. So we're going to move these down, and then the two outside, and I'm always marquee selecting. And we'll just keep doing that. Switch to resize, and you notice I'm going here for my shortcuts. I have my favorite tools at the top: move, rotate, resize, and just the select button. So you can set that up as well. You can always set your favorites however you want. So we're going to reshape that section by just using the resize tool and just keep going. Okay, and we're starting to see our teardrop shape. So this area we need to do like we did at the top. I'm going to go those outside two and those outside two and switch to move. Start pulling that up just a bit, and then the same thing for that section, or that set of points and that set of points, and move those up. Okay. Next, I'm going to grab that row and move it down a bit. And that row, a lot of what we're doing right now is very familiar. It should be very much like doing NURBS editing, except for we're doing it on a 3D model instead of a 2D curve. Okay, so next for the hole in the pendant, we're going to select these four faces on the front and turn over to the back and select the same four faces on the back, and we'll do what's called a bridge. Bridge is going to subdivide between the two selected faces, in this case putting a hole in our model. We need to choose the number of subdivisions to keep it keep the shape the way we want. The more subdivisions, the more detailed the shape is. And I have 2 on the outside, so I'm going to do 2 on the inside as well. Okay. So now back from the front view, let me straighten this out. We'll go back into point mode. And sometimes it's easier to see the points in box mode. You can switch to that at any time. If that helps you select and move things around, we can start matching this up with our shape here as well. And we'll just kind of switch back and forth and select and change the view as needed. These two I need to resize to move them evenly together. And then these two will move up and resize. Check our whole shape is looking good. Okay, from here we might just do some more simple moving and resizing and kind of straighten out things as we go. Okay, so looking good. That's pretty much it for the overall shape of our pendant. So the next thing we're going to do is, from the back side, we want a bail area. Now, to keep things simple, we're just going to extrude the bail, and then later on we'll cut the hole for the bail. So we have a nice hidden bail in the back of our pendant. So for that, I'm going to select these two faces on the back side, and we're going to extrude. Okay. And we're going to extrude 1, 2 times. So 2 subdivisions. I'm moving about 2 more millimeters out, just kind of eyeballing it. Definitely watch the numbers as you move things, and then we'll go to the side here and start shaping this a bit. So pull that in like so, and this is the area we'll cut our hole for the bail a little bit later. Okay, Now to give this a little more shape across the top here, we don't have any edges or points going down the middle, so we'll have to create some. In the basic tools, the only tool we have for that would be to do split edges. I'm going to go into box mode so I can see the edges and faces clearly. Go into split edges. And starting somewhere in the middle edge here, right about there, we're going to start splitting across and kind of following this shape around, keeping it as even as possible. We just keep connecting the dots edge to edge to edge until we get back to the beginning, and then snap the last one closed. Now we have some more edges to select. So we're going to go back to our select tool and select that new edge that we just created. And I'm going to hide my image at this point. We're done with the shaping part of it. And we're going to go to edge mode and select this edge. Now we can control select all of these edges. We don't have the selection tool to do this, but if you double click that edge, you can do a quick edge loop. Okay, now we're going to use our move tool again and pull up on that edge to kind of give us our shape that we're going for. And from here, it's really up to you how you want to shape this. You can add more edge splits if you like for even more detail. And I'm keeping things symmetrical by just making sure I move and select both sides always at the same time. Okay. So with shaper models, I mean, you can spend as much time as you want pushing and pulling these. You have to get to a point where you're happy and quit. Otherwise, if you're like me, I could spend all day tweaking and editing this. So we're good. We have our teardrop shape pendant with the bail area on the back. We're going to click the exit shaper button twice to get back to 3Design. As soon as you're back in 3Design, you now have a solid NURBS model. It converts it automatically, instantly. That's the nice thing about subdivision models and NURBS models. They're very similar, so they work together really well. Okay, so next we just have to add our PAVE and our bail hole in the back. So let's do the bail hole first. We're going to go into our axes and planes and select the OYZ if you have it hidden. You'll have to select it there. That's the side view plane, and create a new sketch. And then we'll zoom in. I'm going to freeze this so I can see inside here. And we're just going to use a NURBS curve to draw the shape. And using my kind of grid as a guide, I can kind of estimate how big the hole is going to be. I don't want to make it too thin at the bottom or the top. Don't forget to close the curve smoothly and validate. Very simple curve. Exit the sketch again. We're going to now we'll go ahead and unfreeze our model. So we'll right click and show, and we're going to select that curve we just drew. It's inside the piece, so use your tree and select your model, and we'll just do a crop and punch. Special effects, crop and punch. We're cropping the shape out, so validate. Okay. So there's our bail hole. Now this is a very complex edge, so filleting that would be almost impossible. If you want to try it, we'll go ahead and do our save as. Go ahead and name our model. Always save before attempting any kind of tricky fillets, booleans, and deforms, of course. So with it saved, I don't have to worry if something happens. I can go right back to it. So let's give it a shot. Like I said, I can pretty much guarantee, see with all these extra edges, it's not one single continuous edge. There's lots of splits there. A good sign is if we select it and it does select all those segments, we may have no problems with the points crossing there. So let's give it a shot. We'll try a 0.15, smooth that out a little bit. And no. So, like I said, not likely to fillet a shaper mesh like this after it's already done there. Once you get into 3Shaping and the Pro Tools, we can do all of this in the shaper mode. Then you don't need fillets and deforms, and your booleans will work much better on shaper objects. So let's, I mean, I'm okay with the sharp edge here, so we'll leave that. We'll go into the PAVE next and select the model, go into jeweling, click your PAVE tool. Okay, now this is got a lot more surfaces than we're used to with NURBS models, so it gives it a little time to calculate. But it should be just fine as long as we have a clean, solid model, no self-intersections on the surfaces. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to set up some symmetry. I'm going to use the OXZ plane for symmetry, so left to right symmetry. And we'll set up collisions. I'm going to be building some tiny little bezel-like around these stones, so I want to leave enough space between each stone for that. I'm going to do a 0.6 millimeter spacing. You'll see here in a second. We don't need frontiers when we're doing a manual pave, especially for a simple pave like this. So we'll go ahead and flip over to the top. And I just realized we got the wrong plane selected. I selected the OXZ. It's going to go top to bottom. Let's go back and fix that. Go to leave plane on. We're going to delete OXZ from here and add the OYZ. That again is your left to right plane. You can show that if you want to see it. And now we're ready to pave. So we're going to choose our stone size. Happens to be 2 millimeters was the last I used, and that's what size we're using. So go ahead and change your diameter to 2 millimeters using the custom diameter option. And we're ready to go. Hit the plus, and we're going to start with our, I like to start here on the bottom. And I'm just going to kind of follow that edge that I have from the surface split there. And we're clicking and sliding those into place. That way we don't have to move them one at a time. Just click and slide. You've seen that in the PAVE video, hopefully. And we get over here, and then one more in the middle. And there we go. Pretty simple pattern. We're going to validate that. Go ahead and build your stone. Any size stone will work there. And we're going to select the stone and our pave pattern and jeweling. Okay, and since I'm flush siding these, I'm going to build up a bezel around them to set them instead of a traditional pave or a micro pave or anything like that. So just a different type of pave today. You can, of course, do anything you want on this part of it. But we do need seats, so we're going to select the group and do our multi-cutter. Freeze our part so we can see inside here. Go ahead and switch to the top part panel and use our shortcut to flip over. Remember, you click it a few times. We can just keep clicking that and flip around so I can see my tool. And for basic seats, all I do is bring the bottom of the seat up right about there and reduce the angle just a bit so it's not sitting directly on the pavilion. So opening that up a little bit. If you're having shrinkage, we may go here and add a little extra diameter as well around the girdle. And that's it. We'll validate that. Okay. I'm going to bring back our crop and punch. So right click and show from the tree. And I'll save and do a Boolean subtract. Okay, I have my Boolean shortcut here, so I don't have to switch back to the other tools. And validate. Okay, seats are all cut. Now we're going to build up, like I said, some little bezels. So we're going to build up some extra metal so that that can be set by hand later. For that, we're going to go into a new sketch, just in the default OXY, and I'm just going to build a circle from the center. Make sure this is centered because we're actually going to jewel this into place as well. And if it's off center here in the sketch, it's going to be off center on the model. So link that to the center, edit it so that we can make it, let's see, we got 2 millimeters. We want it to be, we got 0.6, about 2.25. There we go. Parametric, we can always adjust as needed, but I think my math's right there. We'll do 2.25. Exit your sketch. We're going to select our jeweling as we did that we did a few minutes ago. That has the pave link to it, so we're going to link the circle to that same pave by just adding a new jeweling. Freeze this here so you can see it's going to place the circles right on the edges where we paved. but we want them to not scale. So we're going to go into the third tab and turn the scaling off. So we're going to have that 0.2 spacing around each hole. And that's it. Validate that. And now we simply select that group of circles and go back to the solid module and solid tools. And we're going to multi-pipe them all at the same time. Okay, I'm going to use round with a diameter of 0.4 millimeters. So we should have given them enough space. They might be just touching here. We'll have to keep an eye on that when we do our Boolean. Might have to make them a little bit smaller or make them overlap more so we don't have those shared surfaces between them. We also have the edge around the stone that could become a shared surface. So let's look closely here and see how we have this set up. I think we're good on the inside. Let's test it out. So again, I'm going to save just in case. Boolean are little bezels to the part, and validate. Let's see how that goes. Taking some time, but that's okay as long as it's moving and working. And I see I've got, it looks solid. I don't see any holes in my surfaces. I do have a little bit of a warning here. Geometries have been slightly moved to avoid failure. That could be a good thing. But anytime we have a warning, we're going to check, run your part doctor. So yeah, it is solid. We'll check the microscope. Violation of tolerance. It's kind of expected when it has to move geometry around. Violation of tolerance is not necessarily an error, just means that a couple of edges are slightly out of that thousandths of a millimeter tolerance range. That's okay. I always like to check with the polygon conversion as well. Use the same settings you use in your STL export. Check the quick tip video if you're curious about these settings. And we'll just preview that. We only use this tool to preview for bad edges. If this is going to convert without any bad open edges, we're good to go. This is a mesh object. It's pretty complex already just from using Shaper as a mesh. Lots of extra edges from the Booleans. So it takes a little time to calculate. Looks good though. I have no bad edges. So I'm done with the model. I can completely ignore those warnings and the violation of tolerance. So we'll bring back our stones and we have our nice little teardrop pendant. Okay, so that's it. We'll see you next time in the video demonstration, members videos, and hit us up on the forum if you have questions.